Have you ever had any contact with people from Heaven's Gate?
No.
Are you familiar with what this is?
I knew it was a cult that did mass suicide down in San Diego right as we were doing the first congressional briefings privately in 97.
Right.
That's all I know because I remember it was a disaster.
It was based on aliens. It was based on them thinking that this alien ship was going to come down and take them all into heaven and so forth, and then ultimately ended in a mass suicide.
Yeah.
So you have groups out there that take these alien concepts and kind of twist them into strange cults and so forth that sometimes end in the worst possible way, like Heaven's Gate. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that people should not be part of a cult like that. What I tell people is that the reason I refuse to, I kind of, the people who know me well know I can be a little bit brusque and profane because I do not want to be someone's guru. In other words,
people accuse you of this? I mean, you have these big meetings out where people meditate and so forth. I mean, that's could be viewed as a cult by some people.
Oh, well, I mean, so you go to a football game, you're at a cult because you're with fans. I mean, this is stupid.
Right.
No offense, that's a stupid comment.
Fair enough.
So,
Fair enough. Yeah.
Again, it's dumb as shit. All right?
Okay.
So, yes, people go out and we do this together. Sometimes we train large groups. But it's not something where there's some kind of a cult-like protocol. In fact, if you ever went to one, which you should, you'll learn that I tell everyone, whatever it is we're doing in medicine as a doctor, here's the ethos. See one, do one, teach one. You see it done once. The next time you're doing it yourself on your own. The third time you're teaching a second-year medical student, right? And so the idea is that everyone empowers themselves to master this capability, both in consciousness but also as an operational team, and make peaceful contact. That's our ethos right there. Now, there's nothing cult-like about it. Now, a lot of people, if you use anything that people disregard as woo-woo, consciousness and meditation, you are a priori a cult. Well, that's ridiculous also. Now, could someone turn it into that? Yeah, and I had a talk with a wonderful man named Tony Robbins about this, and he wrote a book, I'm Not Your Guru, right? And so that's kind of how I feel with people. I like teaching, I like showing people, but ultimately I don't want you to, a bunch of chelas or devotees. No, learn this and then go do it yourself and empower yourself. So if anything, I'm in the anti-cult approach to this very strongly, which is also why, I think that it, but you hit on a good point, and that is it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Very slippery slope.
Very slippery. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I make it very clear that ain't me. Don't do that. Now, there are people who try to spin off what I'm doing, create their own little cults, right? So that's different. But, and I can't control that because people are going to do what they're going to do. But there's no reason why people can't have someone who teaches them. It doesn't mean that, and you can respect the teacher, but it doesn't mean you have to then become some slavish person to someone channeling, goobop baloop from the planet Kahua, or whatever it is. It's like, come on, use your own brain, use your own consciousness and faculties, and do this yourself. You know what I like the most? I got a couple of years ago, I got an email. I don't check my own email. I have people who do that. But it was this truck driver in Croatia. And he was going along, and he had the CE5 app, CE5 contact app. And he stopped, it was late at night, to a pullout. There was nobody out in the mountains, Croatia. And he was doing the whole meditation. And he kind of felt that he made contact. Suddenly, a very kind of circular ET craft materialized and went from left to right over in front of his cab, and vanished. And he wrote this, and this was just like a bloke who was like, you'd have a beer with at a pub who's a truck driver. And I went, yes, that is exactly right. And, because what I tell people is everyone who's a human is conscious, and that consciousness is a singularity. And so I think it doesn't matter how your intelligence, your training, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, I mean, I grew up in a 2-room shack with no heat, no air conditioning, abandoned on the streets. I mean, I was very poor in the South, North Carolina. So I tell people anyone can do this, right? And I think the where people get into trouble is where they give their power up to a leader, a religious, whether it's political or religious or someone else, right? So I'm very strict about independent investigation of the truth, critical thinking, doing things on your own, and like I tell people, don't take my word for it, try it. On the evidence we have, don't take my word for it. Go look at the 115 whistleblowers we have in our archive with their testimony, name, rank, and serial number. Have you seen them? When I tell people, like Mr. Musk, I'd say, well, have you looked at that? These are named firsthand whistleblowers, 115 of them, on a silver platter. I spent $20 million putting this together. Who's looking at it?
Wait, you spent $20 million?
Oh, at least over the last 30 years doing this.
Really?
Yes.
Well, where did the money come from?
Me, my work. And as a doctor, I mean, I've sacrificed a lot. I don't talk about it, and donors.
That's what I'm saying. Were there a lot of donors that came in with money?
Yeah, over years, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a huge expense. I mean, just flying all these witnesses into Washington, putting on those press conferences, you're talking 7 digits here. So, and that's why people say, oh, there's a tuition for what you're doing. I say, yeah, it needs to be 10 times that. So shut up and say thank you. But, right. Look, I've given up $500,000-$600,000 a year for years to do this for free, right? I don't get paid, right?
Yeah.
Right. So who's paying me? The U.S. government? No. So I push back very hard on that, and I say there needs to be support for this. This is the other problem, is that if you sell a bunch of nonsense and snake oil, you'll get millions of dollars in contracts from the U.S. government, like Bigelow Aerospace did, $22 million, flushed it down the toilet. If you're actually doing the hard work, you get nada, right? So it's a very unrewarding profession. Let me just put it that way. But I feel like I have a purpose here to do. We have the knowledge, we have the information, we know what the consequences are. So I guess to those who have great knowledge on something, they have great responsibility. So I take that very seriously, but it's an ethical decision, not a financial one.